Hello and welcome to Film Companion South. In this episode, we're going to be talking about First Nights, a Tamil film directed by Jack Prabhu and Santoshh KK. This film is having its international premiere at the New York Indian Film Festival, and it will soon be available for viewing on the Movie Saints platform. The film consists of a cast of newcomers, and the premise is what the title promises, which is first night, the wedding night. Now, in the case of arranged marriages, this can be an awkward thing. Long, long ago, when marriages were arranged by elders, the couple barely met, and they would be pushed into a room and then said, have sex. Now, today things may not be as bad. The couple gets to interact a bit before marriage and things like that in the case of an arranged marriage. But still, the awkwardness, the very first time that you're having sex with somebody that you barely know or at least don't know too well, that's the premise of this whole film. Take, for example, one of the characters. He is some guy who's not had much interaction with women at all. So his whole idea of sex is probably informed by what the movies tell him or whatever. So he actually goes into the wedding night room, he locks the door, and the first thing he does is he pushes his wife on the bed as if that's the only thing that he's got to do. No talking, no anything, just I've got to prove my manhood, I've got to have sex right now. Or take this guy who's come back from the US for an arranged marriage. Now, over there, he's seen people date for a long time, have sex, live in together and all those things. So the intimacy is created naturally, organically over time. And he's having trouble with the fact that, again, he's got to go, they're going to shut him out in a room with a woman and say, you got to do it. Or take the case of this guy who finds out on his wedding night that his wife has had a boyfriend before marriage, and she's probably done it. And even though he's had sex with quite a few women, he's unable to digest the fact that his wife has had an affair. And then there is this scenario which is probably all too common where this girl is terrified to go into, this very young girl, she's terrified to go into the wedding night room because people have told her all kinds of things about what can happen there. In fact, one of her friends tells her, some men can be rough, some men can be soft, you've got to adjust and things like that. This girl's terror just mounts. Now, all these scenarios are fitted into chapters and the film is presented in an anthology format. What's nice about each of these chapters is that it's not just about one couple, but about multiple couples, about two couples sometimes. And what happens is that there is a very natural and very organic density, because instead of seeing just one scenario play out, we see one scenario play out in relation to another. The other thing I liked about this movie is the dialogue. Now, usually I'm not a very big fan of very talky films because they have to be done really, really well, like, the classic Before Sunrise example. Because otherwise it can be like somebody's just like in your face all the time just talking. And especially with Tamil cinema, you know how preachy we can get with lots of things like about sex and love and relationships. And yes, even here the dialogue sometimes gets into a slightly advisey, messagey kind of zone, but it doesn't prove a problem because the situations are like that. Because the situations are situations where people are going to talk these heavy things. You know how like sometimes if you go for a drink with a friend and after a few drinks we start talking about the world and the universe and all kinds of philosophical things, and to a third person they may seem like, oh my god, what is happening? But at that particular point that feels right. This is that kind of thing. The conversations are filled with awkward silences and pauses, and they don't feel overdone. And as I said, the actors, most of them are unfamiliar faces, they do a pretty good job of putting all this across. I had two issues with the film. One is the look of the film, which is that of a low budget indie kind of film, which I guess cannot be helped because the budget is what it is. But you still want the film to look a little better than a TV serial, like a little glorified TV serial, and that wasn't happening here quite a bit. The other thing that didn't work for me is that I would have preferred the film to be a little serious. There are times when the film attempts a sitcom cuteness kind of thing to kind of make things light, and sometimes that doesn't fit at all. But overall, I'd say that given the constraints and given the fact that in an anthology, inevitably some chapters are bound to work better than the others, this is a not bad at all look at relationships and sex and what the title says, First Nights. So that's it for this episode. If you like this video, do subscribe to Film Companion South and see you soon at the movies.